Hi, my name is Brianna Rosario, and this is World War I Explained. World War I was also known as the Great War or the War to End All Wars. During this time period, during the war, we saw great technological military advances that led to the greatest loss of life at the time because a lot of people died during this war. And 65 million plus men from 30 different countries fought in World War I. So, who was involved in World War I? Well, we can group these countries and places who were involved in World War I in two separate categories: the Central Powers and the Allied Powers. So, in the Central Powers, we have Germany, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Bulgaria. And with the Allied Powers, that consisted of Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, and the United States. A lot of different things contributed to World War I, but two main events that helped really set off World War I were Maine, which is militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism, and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which happened on June 28, 1914. On that date, Franz Ferdinand was assassinated by Gavrilo Princip in the city of Sarajevo in Bosnia. After Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, Austria was obviously upset and they declared war on Serbia. And this was the start of World War I. So on July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and following this, other countries also declared war on other countries. So on August 1st, 1914, as Austria's ally, Germany declared war on Russia, which was an ally of Serbia. And on August 3rd, 1914, Germany decides to declare war on France, an ally of Russia, and immediately begins an invasion of Belgium, which was neutral at the time. And on August 4th, 1914, Great Britain, an ally of France, declares war against Germany. And while this was all going on, the United States, President Wilson declared that the United States will remain neutral. But as we all know, the United States does join the war later on. World War I began on July 28, 1914, and it finally ended November 11, 1918, after 4 years of battle, although the United States, did not join until April of 1917. Where was World War I? So, majority of the war was centered in Europe, and the majority of the battles took place in France, Belgium, and Germany. So a couple examples of how these countries and places were able to fight in World War I were, one, the obvious reasons. New technology was coming out during this time. New weapons such as machine guns, advanced guns, new bombs. During this time, a lot of countries were trying to outdo each other with the new weapons, new bombs. And so this created a lot of tension between various places because everyone was unsure of, who's going bigger, like what's to come. So that's an obvious reason. And then trench warfare, which was basically these little spots for soldiers, trenches that were dug, and the soldiers would be inside of them shooting or fighting throughout them. And basically, many believe that trench warfare had no advantages to either place using them. But many did die through the use of trench warfare as they were covered sometimes with barbed wire and they just had horrible conditions. Another reason was trench warfare, and trench warfare was basically these trenches that were dug in the ground, and they went from the North Sea and through Belgium and France. And so basically soldiers fought from these dug in spots. They would hit each other with, bullets or bombs. And there was this land between these trenches, and the enemy trenches would be no more than 150 feet away from the other person's trench. So they were fighting, at a quite close range. But there was a land that was, basically separating them, and this was called no man's land. And this land was sometimes covered with, stuff basically to harm anybody who basically went on it, such as barbed wire or such. But many died during this practice, but this is how they were kind of able to fight one another. So after many events and many more altercations, this is a more simplified version of World War One, basically the basics of what happened. But after everything was done, let's start talking about the peace. So the war ended with Germany surrendering on November 11th, 1918. And with this came the Treaty of Versailles. And basically, the Treaty of Versailles was basically a treaty between Germany and the Allied nations, which included Britain, France, Italy, and Russia. They all signed this treaty to formally end the war, and basically some terms of peace were negotiated throughout the Allied nations and Germany, and everyone basically decided, okay, let's stop fighting, let's stop this war. Obviously it wasn't that easy because of the many altercations that happened, but finally after the treaty was signed, everything was calm. So now that we talked about the basic causes of World War One, let's get into some of the effects. So as we know, World War One left a lot of places completely damaged, a lot of empires just damaged, obviously, because of all the war, all the bombings, all the new weapons, all the new technology. It kind of ruined a lot of places. But it also led to a lot of Europe's colonies gaining independence. They kind of fought for their independence. They kind of started their own independent movements. So it kind of did encourage them to like want to be independent and like actually go fight for it. But a really bad effect of World War One is that it kind of indirectly led to the rise of Hitler, because let's be honest, all the events that happened kind of gave leeway for Hitler to come into power. So it kind of led to the rise of Hitler. And that is the end of my simplified version of World War One. I hope you were able to grasp everything I said, and hopefully I explained it well enough. But yeah.